You dropped the banner?
It was like not far. It's so funny because my aunt was like, yeah, what you're saying is right. She was like, when I lived there, it was like literally a landfill. Just like a dump. So like, not even planned. Like they just like we figured out, oh, this is like and like I just wanted to start my parents met in New York City and oh, I love this man. It was so good. I'm like really like I think it's like when I work well and I'm not isolated, but out of out of my home. Because when I'm home and I'm writing, I just want to like be and so I just be like out and then even like yeah, there's something about being in the city right all day. Fascinating stuff. Really like born out of like writing.
Um, we're good to go, right? Yes. Okay, hi everyone, welcome. I'm Shailene. I'm a librarian here in the Fiction and Humanities Department. And I want to thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to everybody I can see and everybody who's joining us online. Before we begin, I want to let you know that today's event is just one of a great wealth of poetry events that we offer at the Pratt Library. We have poetry discussions, poetry open mics, poetry readings, and much more. In the fall, we will also be welcoming a writer in residence who specializes in poetry, and I expect that the library calendar will be bursting with poetry pleasures, even more after that. So we encourage you to sign up for our poetry event email list so that you don't miss any of these opportunities. And that sign up is in the back of the room on the table. And if you're watching us online, just send an email to poetry@prattlibrary.org, and I'll get you on that event list. So tonight's event, our annual poetry contest celebration, is one of our favorite poetry events that we offer. This is our 14th year of offering this poetry contest, and it's our 12th year of collaborating on the contest with Little Patuxent Review. We're hugely grateful to Little Patuxent Review for so generously sharing their expertise and vision to make this contest a success. And I want to encourage you to consider supporting Little Patuxent Review by purchasing their summer issue or one of their older issues, either in person today or online at littlepatuxentreview.org. And actually, if you want to purchase today's issue, that would be a great idea because you can then follow along with some of the poems that are going to be read today. And we want to, if you would like to take a copy now, or we can pass a copy to you, if you would just promise to pay for it before you leave the room, but you are welcome. I'm going to create a little pause here where people can grab a copy. The new issue, which is the summer issue, is $15, and the older issues are $3. The one that we're reading from today is the newer issue. Okay, so if anyone does want to step back and grab a copy before we go on, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so about the poetry contest, this year we received 231 poems, submissions, and they represented 58 cities and towns and 18 counties in Maryland, plus Baltimore City. If you entered the poetry contest this year, thank you so much for entering. We were truly grateful for your submission, and we hope you'll enter again next year. And I want to thank also Andrew Klein, the Pratt's print and design manager, for crafting gorgeous broadsides of the 2 contest-winning poems. Please make sure to pick up your free broadside as you leave today, and I'm sure that Greg will be happy to sign his broadside for you. Marna Williams, the other contest winner, is joining us virtually. As you can see, Marna, we're happy you're able to be with us in this way if they're not in person. Okay, I'm now going to introduce Little Patuxent Review's editor, Sarah Berger, who is going to MC tonight's event and yes, talk a little about Little Patuxent Review, I think. Sarah is a classical singer, writer, and artist, and has been the lead editor of Little Patuxent Review since 2023. She's a graduate of Oberlin College and the Peabody Conservatory, and she recently completed an MFA in Creative Writing and Publishing Arts at the University of Baltimore, where she has taught in the undergraduate writing program. Links to Sarah's published writing, music, and other projects can be found at sarahbergersoprano.com and orangesloth.com. So please, everyone, help me to welcome Sarah Berger.
Thank you, Shailene. Is the mic adjustable upward and downward? Do we know the answer to that? Do I just twist and... Yeah. Just like that. Okay, got it.
Is that good?
That's fine. It's okay. All right, I'll just adjust. Hi, everyone. It does go up. That's great. Thank you. That's better. Yeah, because I don't think I'm the shortest one. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Berger, and I am the lead editor of Little Patuxent Review, as makes sense. And I also wear a lot of other hats, as Shailene alluded to. I am a writer of prose, and about once every 7 or 8 years I write a poem, but I exhausted my supply of poems to read in Solidarity last year. At last year's event. So what I thought I would read just as a kind of prelude is the editor's note to this current issue of Little Patuxent Review. So it's just a page, and in a lot of ways I'm preaching to the choir because you're already here, but take this energy out into the world and try and spread it if you can. The energy of just being in this room and listening to poetry, and the energy of some of the things mentioned in this editor's note. I suspect I'm not the only editor for whom editor's notes are getting harder to write. I procrastinate. I listen to the news. I empty the dishwasher. I look at the body of wonderful work in this issue, and that helps. But the news presses in, and it takes a lot of energy, for me anyway, not to feel paralyzed as an artist, in fact, as any kind of an intellectually and morally honest human being, while democracy is systematically dismantled around us. What do I say? So I go back to the oldest writer wisdom there is: write what you know. My first artistic and professional pursuit is classical music. Performing as a soprano soloist can be pretty terrifying, with fight or flight responses in full fire and an already distraction-prone brain noticing every detail in the concert hall with absurd clarity, whether relevant or not. a missed entrance, an unexpected tempo, the shape of the woodwork along the back wall of the concert hall, the laundry I forgot to take out of the washer. When distractions happen on stage, one mentor taught me to focus on the text. Voice is the only instrument you have to play while conveying words. And if you dig into those words, really commit to them, you have no mental space for anything else. All you can manage is to tell the story, the emotional truth of the music. So this is what I do as editor of a literary magazine in an authoritarian climate. I focus on the text. Authoritarianism presents denial as science, greed as economic policy, scapegoating and cruelty as social policy, and, touching me most closely in my role here, propaganda as art. Art is free. Art is human. We are here as makers and consumers of art in order to participate in humanity, to see each other, to know each other's names, to peek into each other's awkwardness and grief in relationships, loneliness in childhood, wonder in old age. This issue contains beautiful work by our contributing writers of prose and poetry, including winners and runners-up of the 2025 Pratt Poetry Contest, Greg Sevik, Marna Williams, Adriana Beltrano, and Jeremy Cox. The issue also features interviews and profiles of Bruce Levitt and Isaac Scott, who work to bring literary drama to incarcerated people and returning citizens, U.S. Poet Laureate Emerita Ada Limon, and ceramic artist Stephanie Threet. All these artists do the important work not only of their art itself, but of inviting a wide audience in to interact with it too. Let's interact. So with that said, I'd like to introduce the first of our Pratt Poetry Contest winners and runners-up, and that is Adriana Beltrano. She is a poet from Jupiter, Florida. She was named a 2024-25 Jake Adam York Prize finalist and is pursuing her MFA in poetry at Johns Hopkins University, where she is a managing editor of the Hopkins Review. Her work has been supported by the 2024 SUNY Writers Conference and is forthcoming in the South Carolina Review and Susurrus. So without further ado, let's give it up for Adriana Beltrano.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana Beltrano. I want to thank the Enoch Pratt Library and Little Patuxent Review for having us here today to read. I'm going to be reading some poems for you. And a lot of them are going to have to do with genetic ALS. The first is Mutant Sonnet with Tail. Like stepping on a towel someone was dragging behind them. The slip against the cool tile. The bashed knee. Like waiting for a phone call with bad news, and I'm not ready. For bed, for the event. I told my mom, the second worst part is I will spend my life waiting to see when I will develop the disease. The first worst part is she will never know how it all went down. Implying she'll be dead. Implying she'll be sticky bone behind marble slab in a wall. Above her mist, below her mold. Who could learn to love me who didn't already love me? Catch the extra comma, the genetic marker, the line I didn't really want. Stop the carving of the headstone before the wrong word is chipped at. That wasn't her name. No one knew her that way. Thank you. Makeshift gene therapy. I'm reading Plath, the applicant, at the gas station on Marathon. Big pine key behind us, Fat deer key up ahead. 4 hours till home on US 1 and still not healed. Not feeling better. Among the roosters, missing feathers, and green coconuts doled with axe wounds. Stone benches, 6-toed cats, Victorian beds, no pillows, shin-length iguanas scrambling under steel netting. Key West, clams and key lime pie on the way down, raining too. I was with the 2 most important men in my life. They tried to save me. I didn't kill myself. I made us go on a road trip, our lost weekend. I left my mother. The men left me to go snorkeling. How could I snorkel? Shallow breaths, churning stomach, all the water in the world. After promising myself Zoom therapy on the first beautiful day close to Cuba, the sun hot in the window, the glass too hot to hold, too close to my marked flesh and cramped quarters, the boys in clear water, topaz, glittering. What did you see? I asked. Everything, they said. Nothing was holding us back. We could see bleached coral for miles. Gateway. Hold all along the beach that night. Halo around the moon, sinking into cloud lines. Aliens, maybe. Pointing up, my mother's jab matched my jab. We poked the moon body, saw echoed waves in yellow beeswax. Illness was new then. The stairs were hard, the boardwalk to the water, worse. The loops of 2 leashes in her weak hands, sitting around a pit, a dog on her lap, the other in mine. Twin lions guarding a gateway. To what? Rings of illumination circling a dirty drain, finding their way back to the center and running out of time. There are many ways to love someone who is just like you, I am afraid, and many ways to do it wrong. I can't recall who helped her down the steps toward the fire that time. It must not have been me, or I'd remember soft skin over a loose claw in one hand, rough wood railing in my other. Ode to chest hair. He holds me in the cold sun. He loves me, slaps my hands away from where I palm his chest, the coarse hairs that wind their way around his breasts like scattered wildflowers sticking to a field, his wiry brushing of moss against me. When my mother began to die, I found grip in his chest hair. Now that we are in her purgatory of half-death, her tadpole state, I haven't yet let go. As a child, I held on to my father's back as he dove to the bottom of the pool. My hands lost his neck, the slick shoulders. I'd end up holding on by the hair of his back. This isn't why I like my boyfriend now, but isn't this a man? In the middle of him, over his heart and stark as bone-white relic, a long rectangle of pale-shaven patch, wild mint billowing out again, where his heart monitor had been, stickied on for 2 weeks. Residue left in the new growth. It's gone now, but I bump against its phantom, its curl through every strand of chest hair. He's just like me. Something is wrong with him. And I could sit on a bathroom floor for hours, plucking each from him and making them my own. Thank you. This is America According to Lana Del Rey. I want painted toenails poolside, not salted, but chlorinated. Burnt nose hair, a yellow and blue 2-piece, low rise, slim legs, branching from feet made for OnlyFans. A portable radio with AM and FM, shaved pits, heart-shaped sunglasses. I want plastic pink flamingos on thin rusted stilts, silver and ruddy. I want them staked into the ground like vampires and golf tees. I want my dad's friends to guide my arms, taut, elbows concave, as I swing back to drive the white ball to heaven. I want to be wanted, feel it too. I want all eyes on me at all times, reminding me I am the right kind of woman. I want to pose nude, tastefully, and on my terms, and I want to throw it all away for a man who has nobody's back, not even mine. Seance. We used to play dead in the water, hanging lifeless in the above-ground pool, puppets with our strings set aside. We bubbled, made motions toward kneeling on polymer, the solid drum of the bottom. Our fingers danced in space under the surface. Our arms floated before us like something calling out. To us, to the water, singing before boil, before we couldn't take it anymore. The liquid world closed in on our air. Pretending we were bog corpses dragged from a river made our gills tight and old. Someone dropped their goggles. Our swimsuits, old honey, stuck to our wet skin. There was raisin discomfort, weightless masses like holes bumping against each other at dock, knees knocking, lungs emptied like plastic bags of sand and shells. We all burst through states of matter, found ourselves around a table, joined hands, promised to die for the goggles later. And this is going to be my last poem. I just want to thank everyone for listening to me read again. Hook and eye closure. When I get out of my own way, when I reach around myself in the shower and feel the curved indent of my spine, the valley of skin dipping to touch the system of bones that connect my body to the rest of itself. I feel the way my mother's back looks when I'm hunched over her, fixing and clasping the bra she has managed to get halfway on, the fabric in a twist. It is dehumanizing, I am sure, the way she has lost this act of self-care and performed since tweendom, a pink bedroom, a carefully selected Duran Duran t-shirt, and a pair of jeans. But she puts herself there, chin touching her own chest, as if not to move her head out of the way, but to instead cradle it the way she'd once held mine. I labor over my mother's bra. I connect the wire to the loops, the curved hook to its inviting eyelet. And when she pulls her shirt on, gets it stuck up around her neck, I untwist that too, pull it down, and find everything its place. I am purposeful in my tugging, in asking her, awkwardly, if she needs anything else, if everything feels right to her now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adriana. I also want to thank our interpreters. For those of you in a good position to see our ASL interpreters, it's a whole other way to experience the poetry that we're hearing. So thank you. I also wanted to say, oh man, I don't remember. Oh yeah, well, I wanted to say that I just want to give you a heads up that page 9 of this is where you'll find Jeremy Cox's poem. He's up next, but I remembered what I was going to say. Before we move on, about clapping, I think I support what happened, which is we clap often. It's hard to feel it out. Sometimes it feels like a set of songs at a recital. It's gauche to clap too often. It's totally gauche to clap between the movements of a symphony. But if you don't know that rule when you're coming into a concert hall, how do you know? So anyway, let's do clapping. Let's just keep it up because it's good. Okay, our next poet is Jeremy Cox. He is a runner-up in the 2025 poetry contest, and he knew from a young age that he had a knack for writing. But since he wanted to earn a living at it, He majored in journalism and only minored in English, with a concentration in poetry writing at the University of Florida. Little did he know that it probably would have involved a lot less heartache if he had done it the other way around. He still makes his paycheck from journalism as a reporter for the Chesapeake Bay Journal, a nonprofit paper that exclusively covers environmental issues. He also teaches media writing and environmental science as an adjunct at Salisbury University. He lives with his wife and teenage daughter on the Eastern Shore, where he loves to run and ply slow-moving rivers aboard a cheap kayak. And here is Jeremy Cox to read some poems.
Well, yay, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, you have two gators back to back here, so hopefully that's okay. Playing hooky from my daughter's softball tournament over in Columbia, so thanks for understanding the attire here today. Go softball, it covers everything. We'll begin with the runner-up poem. Out and back on the Junction and Breakwater Trail. The race against yourself begins, ago amid the smell of salt, on what was once abandoned, longing. Measuring the miles they gain, the runners calculating breath. The trail unfolding in percentages beneath marcescent oaks, approaching yellowed corn to pass along the crush of gravel, fast to where the end arrives again. There's resurrection, running back to where the end arrives again, along the crush of gravel, fast approaching yellowed corn to passages beneath marcescent oaks, the trail unfolding. In percent, the runners calculating breathing, measuring the miles they gain on what was once abandoned long ago. Amid the smell of salt, the race against yourself begins. Well, as you probably heard, we had a reading a few weeks ago over in Columbia, and I started this one on the way home, 3 hours back to Salisbury. So thank you for the inspiration. It is called Manifesto, parentheses, by the last glacier. I am very slowly coming to get you. Just stay where you are for the next 86 years. I do not use contractions. I am in no rush. Time is just one of the many human constructs I aim to destroy. Jack London was right. I am to be dreaded. He has a train station named after him in Oakland. Sorry, but no one rides trains anymore. I am the maker and unmaker of all that is, seen and unseen. Great Lakes, Scottish lochs, the Niagara escarpment, Norwegian fjords, the pebble that cracked your Tahoe's windshield on the way to your sister's seaside wedding. All doing and undoing while looking for all the world like I am non-doing. If a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon, I could give a shit. It is about time for Hollywood to make a horror movie about me. Directors, take note. It does not matter which side of my face you shoot. I have no good side. I am gaining on you at the speed of grit. Yes, I stay up with the news. I know you are trying to murder me by pumping excessive amounts of carbon dioxide, methane, and other heat-trapping gases into the atmosphere, thereby raising global temperatures at a rate faster than at any time in the last 485 million years. we find ourselves in a who will kill who first game. You are the pitcher and I am the batter. But that is not quite right. In baseball, for one to win, In baseball, for one to win, another must lose. The fastball flung down central, missed, and safely caught. Let me be clear. If I win, you lose. If I lose, you still lose. You will look back from the unsafe distance of history and wish you had regarded me as more than an unflavored popsicle at the bottom of the basement freezer, crusted over, long past expiration. I am very slowly coming to kill you. Just stay where you are. I have a couple that follow a poetic form. It's spelled Ghazals. I think it's pronounced guzzle, according to the internet. So I'm going to read these like separate poems, although I'm kind of doing like each has a season name, and I'm trying to go through the seasons, but I only have 2 seasons done so far, so that's what you get. So let's go with winter. What the solemn oak and beech trees accumulate, these leaves, fades through the long winter, but do not fall. They wait. This leaves their petioles clothed in amber garb, flecks of beaming sun, until obstinate winds and downpours separate those leaves into divisions and subdivisions, life atomized. No one knows why some trees stay freighted with dead weight, their leaves limboing in purgatory. Was it original sin that recoiled through God's Eden to implicate the leaves of a shady apple tree? We worship with outstretched limbs until the last holdout heart, canopied by fate, believes. All right. And now you get spring. On a semi-cloudy day, the jet prepares to triumph. Is his presence reward enough? No, he dares to triumph. Baseball had been tinged a monochrome game only for few. It needed Sam Jethro and other players to triumph. Jethro completes a left-handed swing on grass painted green, eternally green. What does it take for prayers to triumph? His 1951 Bowman trading card is, of course, colorized. Shot in spring, the season's still theirs to triumph. But these are the Boston Braves. The only hope on this field is in Jethro's eyes. He knows nothing compares to triumph. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Our next poet up is Greg Sevik, co-winner of the 2025 Poetry Contest. He is a poet, translator, and English professor at the Community College of Baltimore County. His poems and translations have been published in Avalon Literary Review, Ekphrastic Review, Inventory, Iron Horse, Vagabond City, and elsewhere. He earned his PhD in comparative literature from Binghamton University, SUNY, and served as a Fulbright foreign language teaching assistant in Vreden, Germany. He lives in Baltimore, where he is working on his first book. Please welcome Greg Sevik. And one thing, if you're following along in this, his poem is on page, do you have it? Okay. It's on page 78.
Hey, hello everybody. Let's see if I can figure this out. I need help. Help, help. Is it just? Oh, is that? Oh, maybe that's it.
Books have a use?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, perfect. All right, thank you everybody for being here. I'm really honored by this. This is the biggest recognition I've ever gotten for my writing. I know that because it's the first time I was ever asked to wait somewhere that people refer to as the green room. So yeah, so thank you. Thanks to Sarah and Shailene and Sophia and anybody else who was involved in organizing the contest and organizing this event today. And I really want to thank my friends. I invited a bunch of my friends and they all came. And that, honestly, that means so much to me. Like, thank you so much for coming. And I especially want to thank my friend and colleague Kar Kazire because he gave me a lot of really great suggestions about the winning poem. And it was actually his idea to take a line from the middle of the poem and use it as the title. So thank you for that, Kar. So I'm going to start with that poem. The day after I started this poem, David Lynch died. 1. Headlights whined through Beverly Hills. A terrible accident on Mulholland Drive. I have no idea what is happening, though this is one of my favorite films. One thing we do know, llorando por tu amor. The film is exactly like life. Who knows what the hell is going on? In the real world, Los Angeles is burning. 2. To the sounds of a swing band, the kids twirl each other. There's a stranger waiting inside your house. She cannot remember her own name. A rumpled bed with blood-red sheets, a man who hides behind the diner. He's the one doing it. I have to get rid of this god-awful feeling. 3. Betty is blonde and wide-eyed. Her dream is to be a great actress. Diane is slumped in her bed. You can tell right away that she's dead. She couldn't cut it in Hollywood. I guess that's how my mother looked when my sister found her in her room. 4. It's been a very strange day and getting stranger. In the real world, the day after I started this poem, David Lynch died. A metallic blue box, a metallic blue key. All it takes is a turn to another universe. Betty's doppelganger inserts the key, falls into the blackness of an open blue box. In the real world, in my teenage years, I watched as my mother fell and fell into the dark. 5. Betty is in her bathrobe. Her names are Jealousy, Lust, and Diane. Her names are Smiles and Lipstick Smudges. Someone is always knocking on the door. No hay banda, il n'y a pas d'orchestre. There is a universe in which my mother doesn't take those pills. A universe in which she sobers and learns to live. David Lynch knows our only universe is this one. 6. There's a stranger waiting inside your house. She cannot remember her own name. She slumps in her bed so you know right away that she's dead. In a theater, in the middle of the night, Rebecca Del Rio sings Llorando. It's so beautiful, everybody weeps. In the real world, I weep too, but I cannot tell you why. 7. Old age chases Diane into her bedroom, hands outstretched like predatory claws. There's no way out, and Diane puts the gun into her mouth. Her pill is a bullet. Meanwhile, in an empty theater, a woman whispers, "Silencio." Her hair is bold metallic blue, the color of the key to another universe. Thanks. Okay, so I've had some luck recently placing poems about being newly divorced. And what I feel like I've learned from this experience is that there's pent-up demand in the world for poems by and about middle-aged divorcees. So I'm filling that void now, and I'm going to read a couple of those for you. The first one, the title is, it's the name of a really cool bar in Bruges, in Belgium. Le Trappiste. They tore down a building to make a new building. I tore down my life to build a new life. When they finished, they found a 13th century cellar. When I finished, I found that the digging had only begun. They transformed the cellar into the coolest beer bar in Bruges. I travel there with my stepdad in the summer of my liberation. Even underground, Gothic arches point toward God, toward heaven, like pointed peaks in Belgian beer foam, frothy as fresh meringue. The rough-hewn stones have held hands for 800 years. The owner has set up a turntable where he plays old records. We listen to Miles Davis, My Funny Valentine, and order another round. My stepdad takes my picture. I smile with a full beer. For my dating profile, I say. He looks surprised, though I've been divorced a year. One day, I will share my life again. Stones will hold hands. For now, I keep digging. We taste the doubles, we taste the triples, we taste the browns and the blondes. I think how my ex would have loved this place. The old jazz records, the low vaulted ceiling, the tunes we heard until we stopped listening, the things we built till the stones crumbled apart. Now the bar's owner is getting agitated. The Brits in the corner are talking way too loud. Why do they have to yell, he asks us, as if we could explain their Anglophone behavior. Why do I play the records, he asks, if no one's going to listen to the music? Thanks. I'm just going to read one more. And this poem has a line in the middle of it that's in German. And the line is just my translation of it is in the title of the poem. So when you hear it, you'll get it. According to a German indie band, you can only sing about sex in English. If you try it in German, they sing in German, it quickly gets embarrassing, like sex education, like a geometry of flesh, like a working theory of sensation. The name of the band is Tokotronic, a play on the name of an old German game system, which is really a way of saying it's no surprise they struggle with sex talk. There are things you long to say but cannot say. Some find Morrissey's singing to be sensual, especially in the Smiths' days when he was celibate and sane. Morrissey would start a melodic phrase, pause, back up, restart, and pause again, as if a praline were pressed to your lips, then pulled away. Über Sex kann man nur auf Englisch singen, which is really a way of saying that a friend from work set me up on a blind date, 2 years after my divorce. And so I'm thinking about what it means to look for love, to look for sex, to look for anything at all for these next 40 years before the pralines pull away forever. At a Zen Buddhist retreat, the Jikido calls us back to meditation by drumming the Han board with a wooden mallet. The strikes begin slowly, then increase in tempo, a rhythmic, spiritual seduction. Don't you long to be enlightened? Which is really a way of saying to open your mouth, bite into whatever's there right now, be it chocolate or sex or air or an even gentler nothing. Thank you.
Oy. Thank you, Greg. This is a good time to make my annual comment that poetry is big and hard, and it's really important to be humble enough to listen to poetry in a room with people. It's like a huge discipline to be able to do this, and a discipline and a privilege and a joy, but it's hard. So thank you. I'm just listening to poetry like all of y'all too, for the first time and letting it wash over me. Okay, so there was one other thing I wanted to add before I introduce our last poet, which is I wanted to give special thanks to Evan Lesavoy, who is the longtime poetry editor of Little Patuxent Review. He has just stepped down after immense and awesome service, and he and I were the people who had the privilege of reading the short list given to us from the Pratt, which wasn't all that short, but it's awesome. It's such a weird. It's a weird joy. Maybe it's not weird. Whatever. It's a joy to open a folder full of mystery and just read a whole bunch of poems with no context. We don't know anything about the poet. We just read, and it's a little roller coaster. So thanks to Evan for his help with the Pratt contest and for his help with editing the whole poetry wing of the journal, which is the biggest wing. So, okay, let's move on to Marna Williams, who is our last contributor, and there she is above us all, above the fireplace, nice and cozy. And so I will just tell you a little bit about her and then turn it over. Marna Williams, co-winner of the 2025 Poetry Contest, lives in North Potomac, Maryland, and is an immunobiologist with 20 years experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, designing and developing novel immunotherapies for cancer and autoimmune disease. While she chose science for a profession, storytelling and poetry are in her blood, for she grew up in the Deep South where everything of significance has a story attached to it. She enjoys reading and writing poetry as a counterbalance to complement medical science. Poetry offers a sanctuary, a place to rest while the world keeps spinning. Here is Marna Williams with her poem, Why I Like Richard Diebenkorn, and other poems. Go ahead, Marna.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes?
Yep, I think so.
Oh, good. I am honored to be here. It's, I wish I could be there in person, but I have a cold. And so I didn't want to interrupt this beautiful event with all my coughing. So all of that's been off stage. So now I've got my water and I'll read you some poetry. A lot of love and dedication went into this event. It's so evident hearing everyone Reed and Sarah talk about this event, and I think it's so important to have events like this that help build community and creativity, especially during this time that can be so polarized. So what I'd like to do is begin by, before I read my poem, to talk a little bit about what inspired the poem. And this poem came from a time when I was working in the biopharmaceutical industry in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we were developing therapies for people with cancer and autoimmune diseases. Very exciting work. But the downside was constant deadlines, lots of pressure. And so what I did to really slow down from all of that, I took trips to the Stanford University Museum, the Cantor Arts Museum. And this particular poem, the Diebenkorn poem, comes from inspiration from one of Diebenkorn's painting, which is in that museum. And this particular painting is from his Ocean Park series. And prior to going to the museum, the first time I saw this painting, it just drew me in. And, basically, the painting is large. It's huge. It's 8 feet by 7 feet. So it covers a large portion of the wall, and it's abstract. And so I knew that this was going to take me time to take in. And so each time I would visit the museum, I would basically stand, 30 minutes in front of this painting, just taking in its immensity. And so after many Sundays of visiting the museum and viewing Diebenkorn's painting, I realized that I was experiencing someone else's vision. And this poem is a tribute to Richard Diebenkorn for the enormity of that experience. Okay. Why I like Richard Diebenkorn. Ocean Park, 94, 1976. I approach Ocean Park at the Cantor Arts Center as you calmly step out of the painting. This is impossible, I think, as I circle the room. Looking back over my shoulder, I shift from left to right as if reading a book. Then you walk over to me and invite me to step into your canvas. Together, we choose a place in the upper left corner where a patch of blue drifts like an ocean breeze. We enter a space between colors. I sense myself awakening in a pool of reflection, thought upon thought that lengthens to further thought, a world without edges. Now I don't know where I am as I dive into angles juxtaposed against each other, opposites seeking synchrony, conflict seeking balance. Somehow I emerge from a panel of gray swimming into the present, my eyes opened and cleansed. Then you turn away from me. You close your hands together and move into a dark recess of the canvas, a night only you can understand. You, Richard Diebenkorn, step back into your painting. Like an actor, after the last round of applause, you bow to me and wave goodbye. I see you disappear behind a trace of blue to wait for when another in your audience will find you, walking around the museum, shaking hands with visitors. Thank you. I can't hear the applause, but I can see it. Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to read 2 additional. Is everything okay?
Everything's absolutely fine. Go ahead, Marna.
Okay, great. So I'd like to read 2 additional unpublished poems. The first, and they're short. The first one is called Brenda at the Wedding. She wanted to go to her son's wedding despite the cancer. The unfamiliar thinness of her arms, bones at her neck, protruding like 2 small birds. Prior to the cancer, she would watch for changes in the mirror, each new wrinkle a story. The years her son argued for no reason, and she feared he would be lost forever. Now, chemo had rendered her face as tight as a drum. Her body had somehow become someone else's, following its own course from the start of day until sunset. When she looked in the mirror, it didn't matter what she looked like or where she belonged. Instead, a sense of perpetuity came from preparing to leave this earth while dressing for her son's wedding. She laid her clothes out on the bed, each item in its place, a simple necklace at the head, shoes at the foot like landed doves. The items waited for her body, a last rite she would give herself. The white lace of the dress clung to her, nestled her heart securely, wrapped tight in the animal energy that would propel her through the wedding day. This would be their final memory, mother and son, whirling with abandon on the dance floor. She beamed up at him with all that she was, all that she could be, all that she would be. This was Brenda, his mom. Okay, thank you. The last poem stems from the magical experience during childhood that many of us have had of having a parent or a loved one read a story to us. And when thinking about reading this, it struck me that while the Brothers Grimm compiled folk tales years before the internet, this story speaks to today and the power of social media. Okay. Story hour from my father. You are in the rocking chair with us on your lap reading stories. My sister and I are huddled in your arms as an acorn falls on Henny Penny's head. We can hear your heart as we wait for the part when Henny exclaims, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling." One by one, each of the farm animals falls in step behind Henny. First Lucky Ducky, then Loosey Goosey, all on their way to declare to the king the big trouble with gravity they had on the farm. As you continue reading the story, a dark stone turns over in my chest. I know how the story will end. All of them marching into Foxy Loxy's den. By the time Turkey Lurkey joins, I can contain myself no longer. But why do the barn animals listen to Henny Penny? At the age of 5, I don't know that this will become one of the primary questions of my life. That Henny Pennies will take on different forms, each one resolute, commanding a following. Some at school, others at work, some even in the Oval Office. You pause, and with depth in your voice, you assure me that the sky cannot fall, and Henny Penny is just a silly girl spreading rumors to her neighbors. I step down from your lap and wander around the room, my feet moving to the pace of your voice. As I cross from one side to another, your words are like stepping stones, a glimpse into the small divide between reality and imagination, and the sanctuary where we know the difference.
Thank you so much, Marna.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
we have time for just a couple of questions, if you got them. And I'd like to give any one of the 4 poets who would like to answer a chance to answer. So let's start and see what happens. Does anyone have a burning question for our poets that you're brave enough to get up and ask? You don't have to get up even. And if you're not super loud, I'll repeat it into the mic. I'll repeat it no matter what, just so everybody can hear. And if y'all don't have a question, I do. Should I start? Okay, so my question is, this is my question for myself and every poet. How do you know, and if you can give kind of as concise an answer as possible, that's ideal, but how do you know when a poem is done? Help me help myself. Marna, would you like to, did you hear the question?
Sure, yes. Yeah, I
Do you
can
want to
start
take
out.
a stab at it?
Sure. That's the magic, what you just described, knowing when it's done. So there's 2 points of magic for me. One is beginning. Once I have that first line, and it should, in my mind, begin with clarity. But the ending, I think it should end with a whiff of mystery. And so how do you get there? I think it's all a part of the process for me is uncovering something that is mysterious to me, something that puzzles me, a memory, something that I don't completely understand. It's confusing, and I've got to sit there and sift through it. And then, and so as I get the first line, and then the other lines start coming to me, but the last part is the hardest for me. And your question, how do we know it? It's basically the poem has to step out of itself, okay, and just have a life of its own, become more universal than personal. So that's kind of how I see it.
Cool, thank you. Anybody in the room want to take a stab at it? Greg, do you want to go ahead?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to quote this right, but Emily Dickinson said something like, when it feels like the top of my head has been blown off, I know that is poetry. And I think that's similar to what you're saying, Marna, that there's like something mysterious needs to happen at the end of a poem. So that's part of it. And then for me, just logistically, I know that a poem is done when my friend Corey Zeller says it's done, because he always tells me the ending's not quite right. He's one like, and so sometimes it takes a while, and then he goes, all right, now you've got it. I call him the king of endings, which he said maybe will be the title of his next book, but no promises.
That's a fantastic title.
Wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
And this is in praise of editors. Thank you, editors. Okay, go ahead.
Anybody else want
Adriana, do you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I kind of think you never know. I've had many poems that I thought were completely done, and then I look at it again, like maybe a couple weeks later, and I'm like, oh, like I read through it, I read it out loud, and there's just something I snag on, like there are just little adjustments you can make. The last poem I read, I thought it was done, and it was completely different, and I had a friend who said, you need to take this part out. And I was like, wow, like you've completely blown this poem open for me. Like this is like so much better, in my opinion. And so I don't know, like I think poetry is a never-ending process. You can always revisit a poem and, you know, make edits to it if you please. But yeah.
Yeah, your question is a good one. It just calls to mind, Marianne Moore, the mid-century poet who would write these great poems, which were just long lists a lot of times. And she'd written one called Poetry, and I think the starting line was, I too dislike it. Yeah. And it was this long poem when it was first published. And then like she was working on a collected works decades later and like just snipped off the first like 2 or 3 lines. And I think if someone like Marianne Moore can be editing herself decades on, I think, all of us can take something from that. Like, okay, don't take this so seriously. It'll come to you at some point.
It just might take decades. Yeah. Thank you for those answers. I have terrible trouble with knowing when something's done and believing something done, and a few months later it's not done, but then a few years later it is. And anyway, my big marker for myself is there a deadline and is there a date associated with this, and that's when it's done. Does anyone else have a question? I think we can take one. And if we don't, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, great. And can you, I'm going to repeat it. Yep.
The craft question is asking, what is your process? How much do you write? When do you write? Where do you write?
Okay. It's just the tiniest little question. I'll repeat it. It's a question about craft. How do you decide what to write? Where do you write? When do you write? And if each of you could like take one little bite of that apple, that would be awesome. Whatever your favorite bite is. And Marna, I'll ask you to go first. And you kind of addressed this in your answer to the first question a little bit. But so did you hear the question?
Yes. How do you write? When do you write?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, am I putting you on the spot too much by asking you to go first each time? I should have gone backwards.
Thank you. That's
okay.
Great. Yes. So, okay. How do I write? When do I write? So something has to inspire me. Okay. I answered that question about the Diebenkorn painting would be an example. Draw me in entirely, and something goes on, an interaction, and, I don't completely understand it. Again, there's the mystery. And so I have to sift through it. So when do I write? That's also good. It used to be so I'm a scientist by profession. And so that's a very different part of the mind that's at work. And it used to be that I could not write poetry unless if it was a vacation. It's just like a way of thinking. So that would kind of answer that part. Does that address the question?
Yeah, I think that's fascinating and tells us a lot about the brain, your brain, and our brains, and yeah, and what poetry is and does. That's great, Marna. Thank you. Well, I'll just keep up the pattern of before. So, Greg, if you want to try.
Yeah, I actually have a very boring answer to the question because I'm a kind of like very organized type A borderline OCD type person, which is not a typical artist personality. So my process is I make myself sit down at least once a week and write something and call it a poem. And then, you know, maybe after a while it isn't, and I just get rid of it. And then I have 3 collaborators. So I write a poem. Fridays I meet with one person, and then I just text it to my friend Corey, and he tells me if it's done or not. And then once a month, Carr and I are now, my friend Carr, because we've been meeting and sharing work. So it's like, I love it because I like organized things and I like having a process, and it's the same every time or almost the same every time. And sometimes at the end it's just a bunch of garbage, and sometimes there are okay poems that come out of it. So that's what I do.
I would say I'm kind of the opposite of that. I don't really set aside time to write ever. I feel like you just gotta write when you write, at least for me. And so when a phrase or like something musical, just like a little set of words appears in my head about, you know, whatever I'm thinking about, I'll try to jot it down, or if I jot it down and more keeps coming, I'll do that. But, you know, anytime the inspiration strikes is kind of when I write. I like to write at night the most, I think, though, if I had to pick, yeah.
You know, I think as a young person, I had to sit in a spot and, you know, wait for the lightning strike. But as a journalist for 20 years, you end up, you know, writing on your laptop in a rented pickup truck, chasing a hurricane, or, you know, scribbling it in a notebook and reading it to your editor. And so, you know, you become a little less, you know, picky about where you're writing. And lately, it's just taking out the notes app on my phone if I'm waiting in line and I saw something or heard something or a feeling struck me. And let me get that down, just to get it down however bad it is, and then go back and, you know, apply serious thought to it. But being there in that moment, the phone has been an amazing tool to bring into my workflow.
Cool. Thank you for those answers. And that last thing you said, Jeremy, about just get it down. It might be crap, but get it down. It's so true, and it's something we can all do, and something we would all probably be like mentally healthier for if we try to do. Like, maybe not mentally healthy, but more appreciative of little moments that otherwise would have just blown away and we would have never seen them again. Anyway, I'm just talking to myself, but all of you too. I think that's it. What I want you to feel free to do is stop by the red table there, and you can purchase. And Shailene will. Yeah. Okay. If I don't get it all, you come and fill in the blanks. Okay. Good. Okay. So I will turn it over to Shailene for a final goodbye, but. Stop by the red table and purchase one of these beautiful books, which contain all 4 of the poet's award-winning poems, prize-winning poems, and a bunch of other really great stuff. Buying one of these, it's a grab bag. It's an act of trust. You don't know what's in here. Just like you didn't know what you were going to hear when you walked in the room. You may have known one of these poets or heard one of the poems before, but you hand yourself over to chance and the possibility of running into someone else's idea that resonates with you. So I encourage it. There are also old issues, back issues for $3, like total bargain wonder. Come to the bargain wonder table over there, and you can pay with cash or credit or Venmo. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Shailene. Thank you to all the poets. Thank you to all of you for coming and supporting poetry and the randomness of being in a room together and not knowing what you're going to get and just trusting. And please come back to the Pratt or any other institution supporting the arts. And that's all. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sarah. I just wanted to thank Sarah for her really brilliant emceeing. And also thank you again to the Little Patuxent Review for collaborating on the poetry contest with us. And as Sarah said, thank you to the poets for reading today and for your answers to the questions. You were all fantastic. Thank you to Gateway for providing the ASL interpretation. Fantastic. And in addition to purchasing copies of Little Patuxent Review at the Wonder Bargain table, I just want to remind everybody you can also pick up these beautiful broadsides, which have Marna's and Greg's poems on them, and those are free. So take those with you as you leave, and also sign up for our poetry event email list on the back table so that you don't miss any other wonderful opportunities to hear poetry, connect with the community in this way. So thank you all again for coming, and please enjoy the rest of your weekend.